Let's start with a hard truth. The fundamental tools that you, your advisor, and frankly, the entire investment industry use to measure risk and performance aren't just a little off. They're profoundly flawed. Today, we're going to tear down the illusion of safety that they've built. And this leads us to a really uncomfortable question, one every investor has to ask. Is the person managing your money actually skilled, or are they just getting lucky in a rigged game, benefiting from market quirks that standard models are completely blind to? So let's begin by exposing our first major blind spot. You've heard the story a million times. The 2008 financial crisis was a total surprise, a black swan event nobody could see coming. But you know what? The data tells a very, very different story. A story that suggests this was less of a surprise and more of a convenient fiction. Take a look at this timeline. The warning flares were going up years before the collapse. It all started back in 2004 with this huge, unexplained spike in people prepaying their mortgages, a clear sign that something was deeply unstable in the housing market. But this warning was buried. Why? Because the government-sponsored enterprises, the GSEs, were dragging their feet on adopting a new accounting rule. This delay let them use an accounting gimmick to hide a terrifying amount of risk on their books, right up until the whole thing imploded. Now, that jump in prepayments in 2004 wasn't just some small blip on the radar. It was a 5-alarm fire. It signaled a fundamental change in behavior. People were choosing to default on their loans instead of refinancing. But because of those accounting games, this massive red flag was effectively invisible to the broader market. And if you think this was all just an innocent mistake, think again. This was not an accident. It was a deliberate, systemic effort to bury the bad news. Any analyst who dared to question the numbers and point out these problems was, well, let's just say they were encouraged to find a new job. The ignorance was manufactured. So you'd think a catastrophe like 2008 would make investors scared of risk forever, right? Well, the opposite happened. It caused this wild psychological shift. After seeing the market make these insane moves, investors stopped fearing the extremes and actually started chasing them, desperately hunting for any yield they could find. This brings us to a crucial concept, fat tail risk. Think of a normal bell curve. Most financial models live there, in the safe middle. The fat tails are the crazy, once-in-a-lifetime events way out on the edges that the models say are basically impossible. Well, after 2008, investors started looking at those impossible events not as a threat, but as an opportunity. This chart just lays it out perfectly. Before the crisis, the thinking was simple. Risk is bad. The more volatility, the less happy you are as an investor. But post-crisis, it's completely flipped. Now, investors are actively seeking those fat tail events. Their satisfaction can actually increase with volatility because that's where they think the big returns are hiding. The very definition of risk got turned inside out. Okay, but this new hunger for risk creates a massive problem for you and me. If managers are now being rewarded for taking on these wild, hard-to-measure risks, how on earth are we supposed to tell the difference between a genuinely skilled manager and someone who's just riding a wave of hidden market danger? And that leads us directly to the great deception of modern finance, the idea of alpha. We're about to pull back the curtain on this so-called measure of skill and reveal that most of the time it's just plain old market risk wearing a very clever disguise. I mean, the entire asset management industry is built on this one idea. Managers get paid the big bucks, they get celebrated, all for their supposed ability to generate alpha, that magical return that has nothing to do with the overall market. It's the holy grail of investing. But what if I told you it's not real? What if that alpha you're paying for is nothing more than a ghost in the machine, a phantom created by broken math? Here's the core of the problem. The market doesn't move in a nice, smooth, straight line like the standard models pretend it does. It's messy, it's nonlinear. So when you try to measure that complex reality with a simple linear model, all the stuff the model can't explain, all those nonlinear market effects, they don't just vanish. They get dumped into a bucket, and that bucket is labeled alpha, or manager skill. So how does this play out in the real world for us? Well, let's look at one of the main tools investors use to cut through the noise. Those popular fund rating systems. You know the ones. They hand out stars based on past performance. Let's see how well they actually work. The data from after the crisis is, frankly, damning. For the top-rated 5-star funds, the rating system completely misses almost a third, 29%, of their actual chance of outperforming. And it gets worse. For the bottom-rated funds, it actually overstates their chances. The whole system is fundamentally backward. Let's be absolutely clear about what this means. If you're an investor who just blindly follows these ratings, you are being systematically pushed away from the very funds that are likely to do well. The tool that's supposed to help you is actually hurting you. Just let that number sink in for a moment. 29%. In the post-crisis era, this is the amount of real outperformance probability that the rating system just vaporized. It underrated the good funds and overrated the bad ones, creating this massive distortion field that the average investor walks right into. So, given that the very tools we use to measure risk and performance are broken, what's the path forward? It's not about finding a new tool, it's about adopting a whole new mindset. A mindset for a world where the biggest dangers are the ones you can't see. And the solution here isn't to run out and buy some complex new financial product. The solution is to fundamentally change how you think about risk and how you define skill in the first place. It really all boils down to this. You have to learn to see two completely different kinds of risk. First, there's the controllable stuff, the day-to-day market noise. That's what your manager's paid to handle. But then there's the other kind, the uncontrollable, catastrophic tail risk, the system killers that standard models ignore, but that can wipe you out overnight. So I'll leave you with this question. Look at your own portfolio. Do you really, truly know the difference? Can you separate the everyday risks your manager is paid to take from the hidden ones that could completely ruin you? All right, before we wrap up, the important stuff. This analysis is for informational purposes only. It is not financial advice. Please, do not trust us or any other influencer on social media with your money. You have to do your own research and conduct your own due diligence. Always. If you found this breakdown valuable, we'd appreciate it if you'd click the like button to support the channel. And make sure you subscribe for more deep dives that question the conventional wisdom in finance.